What's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about the movie Uncharted. It is on Netflix as of today, so if you haven't seen it, warning, we are going into spoiler territory here, so make sure you guys go and watch on Netflix, then come back and see what we have to say about it. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump right into this. I can't remember. I think you have, Cheryl, but correct me if I'm wrong. Have you played the Uncharted games?
I kind of played it. It was more like I started playing it and then I got shot at and I threw the controller at my boyfriend and then just helped him with the puzzles from then on.
Okay, and which number of Uncharted did you play? Uncharted, I
I
think you
believe
said
it's the
Uncharted 4?
fourth one, yeah.
Okay, and that's one of the best ones. Although it's funny because over the history of Uncharted, people have different favorite games. Some people say two, some people say three, some people say four. No one says number one. But it was interesting because the start of this movie, it starts off almost like a Marvel film where it has like how the Marvel logo like goes and shows all their characters. Well, this was the first time I saw the equivalent of the Sony version of that. So they were showing like Kratos, they showed Joel and Ellie from The Last of Us, and they showed Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. And the only thought that I had was, oh God, no! Please don't make a Horizon Zero Dawn movie. Leave Aloy out of it. You're already making a Last of Us television show. You'll probably make a God of War movie one day. I don't need these other games to be movies. That's fine. Leave them as games because game movies are generally usually pretty bad. But I will say that Uncharted surprised me in that it is not terrible. But I have a lot to say about Uncharted that we'll get more into later. But what I'll start off with for now is that I think as a movie based off a video game franchise, I think it's pretty weak. But I think that if you don't know much or don't care much about the Uncharted franchise as a video game franchise, and you're just watching this movie as a casual member who doesn't have any type of other preconceived notions of what these characters look like or how they're supposed to be, then I think the movie is a middling fine action adventure film that, in all honesty, National Treasure is probably a better Uncharted movie than this, but this movie exists, so.
I actually thought they did pretty good considering it was based on a video game. But I did feel like it was a better version of Jungle Cruise.
Oh shoot! Yes,
So,
that's true.
if you
Oh
put
my
it
god.
that way, it's in between Jungle Cruise and National Treasure, I guess,
Yes,
is a
that is
good way to put
a
it.
great ranking system. Oh man, I'm impressed. Well done, well done. So yeah, yes, you pat yourself on the back. One of the things that I think was challenging for me was the fact that even from the jump, hearing that Tom Holland was getting casted as Nathan Drake felt odd to me because like one, yeah, sure, he was like a little young for the part. Nathan Drake is usually like in his mid 30s to like 40s, but the other part about it was the fact that he just didn't seem to like evoke the character to me. And I felt like, okay, well maybe they're casting him so young because they want him to grow into the role and be able to still do this role 10 years from now. And I was like, okay, I guess I can see that. But he feels like it definitely feels like it's meant to be some kind of like origin story. And this movie takes a lot of cues from the third Uncharted video game. Because in that game, that's when they mentioned Sam, and you see flashbacks of them as kids, which you didn't see in the first two games. But the thing about Nathan Drake in this film, as portrayed by Tom Holland, is just that to me, it kind of still felt like Tom Holland being Tom Holland. And I felt that same way about Mark Wahlberg. There wasn't anything about Mark Wahlberg that felt like him being Sully. It just kind of felt like Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of story, I think it's fine. It actually, I thought it was a lot like the fourth one, or like
Mm-hmm.
or parts of the fourth one because it was like kind of piratey and they were looking for treasure, like pirate treasure. So
Right.
there were elements of it, and like they go to the island, and there's an island in the fourth
Mm-hmm.
one that they go to, and I know that like a lot of the Uncharted games are like that. But I think like even the crosses were from
That I
the
don't
fourth
remember.
one, I think.
You're probably right. I don't really remember the fourth one that much. I know the opening of that movie where they're in the plane and it's all that whole sequence that was
That's
taken from the
from,
third game
yeah, that one I was told was from the third, like directly from the third game. But
directly lifted.
yeah, but they're like even like the church
Hmm.
thing that's in the fourth one. I don't know if like they're just in all of them, but
So maybe
um,
it's like they kind of like dove. They kind of took from. They might have lifted from a kind of a fusion of the
yeah,
third and fourth games because those are also like the ones that are the most recent.
yeah. But I would agree. Just like having gone through the fourth game, that Tom Holland just did not feel like Nathan Drake, and same with Sully. Mark Wahlberg did not feel like Sully, although I feel like Mark Wahlberg was closer to Sully than Tom Holland was to Nathan Drake. But I think you're
Right.
right about like it being like an origin story, and they want him to grow into the role. But I was not feeling Tom Holland for it. I was like, this is just Spider Man being Spider Man kind of thing. And the other thing I was missing was the parkour. I didn't think there was enough parkour,
There was
and
not enough, or climbing even. There
yeah,
wasn't
or
really enough
yeah,
climbing.
exactly, and like and jumping, like jumping really far. I guess that's
Hmm.
parkour, but that's like a huge thing for Nathan Drake that they didn't really do. Um, and I mean, Sully is not really a mentor. That was supposed to be Sam. So
Hmm.
I feel like that takes away from his future relationship with Sam, and I think Sam is probably going to be in the next movie if they make a next movie.
Probably.
Just kind of going off of the end credits of the movie, there's an after credit scene that
Hmm.
means that there's going to be another movie. So I suspect that it's going to be the part of the fourth game that had Sam in it. So
Yes, and you know what? You're right. Like I misremembered. I think you're right that Sam appears in the fourth game because that's the story, right? Is that he gets a note from Sam and then he lies to Elena and then goes to like be with Sam. So yeah, you're probably. I think you're right. That was my bad. Like they definitely pulled a lot from the fourth game.
yeah, so I mean, it just feels weird. I just didn't really buy into Tom Holland, but in terms of story, I think they did a fine
Yeah,
enough job. It's like it's hard to mess up an Uncharted story because it's pretty bare bones, like simple.
it's also been done a bunch of other times with like Raiders of the Lost Ark, any Indiana Jones movie, the Tomb Raider movies.
Yeah,
We just
they
mentioned
even
National
mentioned
Treasure.
it.
Yeah,
I think
it's
they
like
mentioned National Treasure and Indiana Jones in the
in
movie.
this movie.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, it's like those. So those stories aren't unique in themselves. Like, that is something that has been done before. So I think you're right. It's not that it's so hard to. It's not so hard to build like a whole kind of like situation, but the thing that makes it uniquely feel like Uncharted are the characters and, like you said, the parkour. And those were two things that were, at least for me, very lacking in this film, and so it didn't necessarily feel uniquely like Uncharted. The only thing about it that made me remember, like intrinsically, like in my soul, that it was an Uncharted film was when they land off the plane, and they walk up on the beach, and there's that guy sitting there just like lounging around, and he asks what happened to them, and they talk about how they fell out of a plane. He says, "Oh, that's something that happened to me once." That was Nolan North, who's the voice of Nathan Drake, and even when he says the line, it sounds like Nathan Drake saying the line. And when he's saying it, they're playing a soft version of the Uncharted theme, and like the game theme, which is a very iconic theme. And that's like one of the things that goes also with the music. Whenever they played that theme, it was like, okay, this is a really good theme because it's catchy, it's memorable. You hear it and you know exactly what it is. But then the rest of the movie's soundtrack is just forgettable, and it doesn't stand out at all.
Yeah, not one in the books for the music, but then again, this is not one in the books for a lot of things because Um, it was pretty basic, and it's fun. I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it. But I just, again, did not buy into the Nathan Drake or Sully characters. In the sense of like, that wasn't really portrayed the same way that they were in the games.
Right. And I will give the movie credit on one thing. I liked the set piece that they had at the end. The helicopters lifting the two ships and having a battle aboard two, like, it lifted airship, like two lifted ships in the air. Like, that was pretty cool. And that when I looked at that scene, I remember thinking to myself, okay, this feels like something that could be in an Uncharted game. This is something that you could actually play, and it would be harrowing, and it would be fun and ridiculous, and that's kind of awesome. So I was like, okay, movie, I'll give you props on creating your own set piece that didn't borrow from the games, like the way the plane scene did. This was something that you will not find in any of the video games, and therefore you could say, okay, that's a reason that you can look at this even if you've played all four Uncharted games. So I give them props on that. The other thing that this movie kind of felt like is because, like, you were talking about how it kind of feels just basic. Even the villains in this movie are very basic, and I wanted to like Antonio Banderas, and I wanted to like his little henchman, but they both just came across as flat to me.
I mean, I agree to you on some level, but I did like seeing Antonio Banderas. I felt like that was a really good cast for that type of video game character. But I think it's, it kind of falls into the whole video game vibe of like, you don't really care about the
About the
villain
villains.
that much.
Yeah.
Because you don't play against the villain the whole time in the Uncharted games. It's more about the puzzle
Henchmen.
solving and the henchmen. But the thing I thought was funny was I kept asking myself, how did they know where they were gonna be? How did they know where to go? But the funny thing is, I actually kind of liked it because that's how I feel about the games. Where I'm like, how did they get
know?
here? How did they know to get here? Why are we needing to do all these things? But they just know where to come and go anyway. And
Right.
that's kind of how it was in the movie, and I thought that
It captured that emotion of the game.
it was comedically good. It was kind of almost perfect. Like, I wish that they made it a little bit more ridiculous so that, like, or they, like, broke the fourth wall, like having Tom Holland say, how did they know where to go?
Right, if they had more fun with it. Yeah, I remember I asked myself on that in one scene where they end up in the club, and then when they're or the dance bar or whatever, right before they go into the place where they almost drown. And I remember they get in there, they see the henchmen, and they're looking for them, and I'm like, how did the henchmen know that they were going to be here? They were walking around in a church catacombs like literally 60 seconds ago. They didn't even know they were going to be in here. And I was like, if you were following them, it feels like you would have followed them down into the catacombs, not walking through the street and then walking into random buildings. So that one was one of those ones I was just like, okay, movie, this one's a little weird. But it was, yes, it's fine. It's like, I think what you said is very indicative of how it feels like in the games, where you're always just asking yourself, how did these people end up getting here when I have all the information and all the pieces I need? How did they figure this out while I'm up here literally deciphering code in order to know what I have to do next?
Yeah, and just kind of going back to the whole pirate ship thing, I was also kind of like, if I was her, the villain, and I saw that they hijacked one of the ships.
I'm not gonna go after them with the ship I'm holding.
With the ship that I have, yeah. I'm gonna go take this to a safe place and then send my gang to go pursue them and stuff, and like maybe catch up with them later because I know exactly where to go all the time anyway. So. But it was I agree with you. I really enjoyed the fight scene with the helicopter like the two helicopters carrying the ships, and it was like a pursuit, like a helicopter chase scene. That was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. And then they were doing like some sword fighting and stuff like that. It was very pirates, swashbuckling.
Very, it was, and they kept throwing people overboard and everything else like that, which was a death sentence at that height. So it's not like the movie didn't have anything to offer. I can't. It's so weird because there was a short film that came out. I want to say a couple of years ago now that featured Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake and Stephen Lang as Sully, and it's like a 14-minute film, but when you watch it, it feels like Uncharted. It feel like those characters feel like the characters from the game, even though neither one of them voiced the characters in the game. They still embody them, and it doesn't feel like they're doing like a caricature. It feels natural. It feels like you saw the 3D animated characters now appearing in live action, and it worked. And yeah, Nathan Fillion's a little older, so he probably couldn't do everything, but somehow in that film they've still made it feel very Uncharted, and even got a couple of callbacks and had some fun with it to make it feel like the game. And so, because I have also that to compare it to, it made the lack of that feeling stand out even more when watching this movie. But that's why I have the second part of how I was trying to view this movie, which was as someone who knows nothing about Uncharted and has no connection to the source material, does this still work as a film? And I think that for the most part it does. It's still a basic plot. It's still like kind of shoestring thin like characters, but they try to play with this whole idea of like trust. I think that's the theme of the movie, is learning to trust people. Nathan Drake is trusting and gets betrayed. Sully has been betrayed, so he never trusts anybody, and Sully has to learn to trust Nathan, and Nathan has to learn how to basically not always be so trusting. I think those are the two arcs of those characters, and then they're able to meet in the middle. So I think that from on a base level like works, and that can be interesting, but I think that's kind of where it ends for me when it comes to like the characters.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they really gave either of them too much of an arc, but at the same time, they kind of made it work. I mean, just thinking about the games, I don't really think Nathan has an arc,
No,
and
those games
Sully
are so basic.
definitely doesn't. Yeah, so at least they had something there, and they didn't make him
Hmm.
already awesome, I guess. But that's also the
Right.
thing about the games, is that usually in a movie I would get a little frustrated, like, oh, you're just gonna give up and let them take the key or whatever, the thing that you were trying to hang on to the whole time, and like you get defeated and like, okay, now you gotta go back and get it and stuff like that. But that's kind of how the games are. He always gets defeated, and then he has to
Hmm.
find some other way. That's the whole like journey of the game, is just kind of like getting stuck, having to find another way. So I think they did a really good job in terms of doing that. Where, and then they, of course, they keep bumping into the villains who happen to figure out a way to get there
Be in the
without.
right place at the right time so they could
Exactly.
see Nathan Drake driving through on a boat when they're looking in the long area and be like, "Oh wait, there he is." It's like, "Wait, what?" Okay, stretching animation, stretching my imagination because I know the movie needs to happen, but
I
that
do
was
like what they
ridiculous.
did with having Nathan write down the wrong coordinates for
Yeah,
that
Chloe.
Chloe to steal.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought that was a good story twist to put in there, because they
Hmm.
were trying to like, make it seem like they were gonna warm up to each other, and that eventually she would cooperate and become part of the team. But then she doesn't, and that's kind of it for her, because she goes the wrong way, and they see her going the wrong way later.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked that little thing that they inserted in there with her, because ultimately it is about um, Nathan and his buddy Sully.
Yes, absolutely. And the one other thing that is prevalent in the Uncharted games is the humor. There's always a level of like the games never take themselves too seriously. It's not like those games get dark. There are kind of heavy moments, but the game always has a kind of light feeling and tone to it. And Nathan says things that are meant to make you laugh. There's banter between him, Elena, Chloe, and Sam, whatever. All of them, they have banter and it's funny. And so that was another thing that this movie was like trying to do, and there were places where it worked, and there were other places where it didn't work for me. But there, like one example where it worked, where I legitimately did burst out laughing, was when they had the Scottish guy, I think, and he starts saying something to Nathan Drake, and he literally is just like, dude, I cannot understand what you're saying. And I was like, okay, yeah, that was funny, because even when he said something, and I remember thinking to myself like, what did he just say? And so what happened? Nathan responded that way. It was great.
Yeah, that was good. I really like that, and I really like the whole bit with the cat too. I thought that was funny.
Oh yes, yeah, no, that was also really good. But so the other thing I wonder about this movie is with the actors, because I remember this. I feel like I might be wrong, but I feel like it was this movie where Tom Holland was saying that he wasn't happy with his performance because he was more interested in focusing on how he looked rather than just being the character. So he was just like, oh, did that look good, or how do I look in this shot, and everything else like that. And there were parts where I was like, oh, this is like you posing right now for like to make it look kind of cool, and I could see if this is the movie where you said that about, I can see that in here. But I also wonder for Mark Wahlberg if people were telling him Sully has a mustache, and Mark Wahlberg was like, I'm not gonna have a mustache. I'm not gonna have a mustache. And they were like, well, fine, you won't have to have a mustache, but you're gonna have one in the after credit sequence. And then he was just like, fine, I guess. So
that's funny.
Yeah, right.
So if you could recast Sully and Nathan Drake with anyone, and not considering that there would have to be another movie following, and it would just be this one movie, who would you cast?
Oh my gosh, that is a loaded question. Yeah, I'd have to take some time to like do some research and think about it, but I definitely would cast someone older. I would at least cast someone a little older. Like, I might not cast someone in their 40s, but I probably would cast someone at least in their mid 30s, to like help evoke the feeling of Nathan Drake. And as far as Sully, yes, someone that can feel a little bit older to put aside, put beside him. But yes, do you have an idea? Is that why you brought it up?
Well, for Sully, I would cast J.K. Simmons.
Oh my God, that's a great cast. That's so good.
But for Nathan, I'm not sure. Maybe someone like, I don't know, because someone that's like you usually has like a chill, or can have a chill, but bantery kind of thing.
You can say it. You want to cast Paul Rudd. I hear it. Okay, fine.
No.
They can cast Paul Rudd.
Oh, actually, I kind of like. I was not thinking Paul Rudd, but I kind of like Paul Rudd. No, I think he's too goofy.
He is too goofy. He absolutely is too goofy.
What's his name? Now I'm looking it up. Oscar Isaac. Is he too old to be Nathan?
I don't know. I think he's in his 40s, so
I feel
probably
like
not.
He would be cool as Nathan. I think he could pull it off, because we've seen him in like what was that show?
Moon Knight,
where he could be kind of goofy and like flailing around and stuff like that. Like he can like have jokes and stuff, but then he can also have a really serious side, like in Dune. And I think his performance in Star Wars even would match the character of Nathan Drake.
I think you're right. He's I mean, it sounds like we're saying that Oscar Isaac is a good actor, but he absolutely is. No, I like those choices, and I'd be curious what like our audience, what you guys who would you cast, or if you guys are even like satisfied with this casting. But yeah, I think in the end of the day, I feel like they want to have a sequel for this film, and I don't know that I'd want to watch more movies in this franchise. It feel like the movie ends in a way where they imply that Sam is alive, and they're gonna he's gonna be a player in the next film. They, at the end of the film, in the after credits, they're being held up by someone has a gun on both of them. I'm guessing, like, I think the implication is that it could be Chloe, but my instinct is telling me that it's probably Elena because they have to bring Elena into the story somehow. Either way, I I'm not really sure that I necessarily want another Uncharted movie, but as far as like having the video game curse, the video game to movie curse of any video game movie adaptation is always bad. I can't say that this is terrible, but at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily uplifting that whole like curse either.
Right. I'm not familiar with the other plot lines, so it's hard to say because I have no idea how he meets Elena or anything like that. So maybe I should try to play the older games.
I mean, I think the biggest thing, Elena's probably not holding them up because Elena is a reporter and she was with them in the first game, just kind of like following them and reporting on what was happening and stuff like that. And she kind of just got pulled into this whole thing. But yeah, like that, she's a pretty important character. So I imagine if they are doing a sequel, they probably bring her in, especially because there's room to have like a whole like love triangle thing going with Chloe, Drake, and Elena. But you know, we'll see what they end up doing.
This is what I think. I think they're gonna go off of the second half or like the second half slash middle section of the fourth game, which is having like the prison guys come and it's gonna be about trying to get Sam out of jail. And then after they get him out of jail, they're gonna go on some like more adventure stuff, and then Elena's gonna show up.
Probably. That seems like that would work really well. So yeah, but that's everything that I had for this. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about the film that you want to get off your chest?
No, just want to remind you about subscribers, and that's it.
Oh, I mean, I'm not ending the video right this second. I have my whole ending thing, Cheryl.
I know.
Gosh.
I'm letting you know ahead of time right before you do it.
Oh my gosh. What did you guys think about Uncharted? Did you like it as a film? Did you think that it is a good video game adaptation? Did you think that is kind of poor? Would you like to see more movies from this franchise? Would you like to see it recast, or was the casting perfect for you? What have you thought about it? Comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you guys like, share, subscribe, you could like just press this little button over on the corner here. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.